Okay, so similar to the Panton chair, um, this object does not have a whole bunch of straight lines on it. We've got some ellipses, we can recognize that. There are some straight lines on curved surfaces. The back of it is flat, the bottom of it is flat, but how do we draw this? And to dissect this thing and figure out how to draw something like this, first we've got the front, the side, and the back views here to give us scale from left to right. But the first thing that we're going to want to do, and I'll demo this in a minute, is we're going to want to sketch in the side and the top view, that footprint. And for the purposes of this one, I think it's a little bit easier to start not with the actual iron plate, the heating element, but just above that where the white plastic starts, and then we'll add the heating element afterwards. But just as we've done in the past, you're going to want to translate, use your proportion and translate this two-dimensional side view into a perspective center plane. And you're going to want to take the footprint and translate it as well. And so you're going to do that first by setting up a perspective grid. And we're really going to draw half of this to begin with. And so you need to set up your perspective, figure out exactly how you want to see this object. This one is fairly close to that vertical horizon line. We're seeing maybe just a little bit more of the side, which is good. It means that we can see through the handle. And it's not really that close to the horizon line. My vanishing lines are not vanishing that quickly, but you can see that the ones going towards the left vanishing point over here, out in that direction, those are vanishing just a little bit faster than these going towards the right vanishing point. One other thing that we really want to look at is we're going to build this up with sections. And so before I take you any further, the points that I'm looking at right now, and I'm going to kind of highlight these in green, is I'm looking at a point right here. Again, similar to an exercise we did earlier, probably the most important line on this sketch is this center line on the bottom. And so if we find that point on that center plane and we carry it down to that most important line, the center line, and then carry it over to the top view which we've laid on the ground plane, and then carry it up, what that does is it gives us a plane. And we're going to do that in a couple of strategic locations moving back. It probably would be good to actually do it where you've drawn in and gone ahead and created these vertical lines through this thing to help proportion this object out. I've done it down here in a couple of different places, but it'll be okay. And what that does is it gives us a plane, and you got to focus on this plane. You kind of have to forget about everything else. You're going to focus on that plane and sketch in your sections. And then even beyond your sections, what you're going to do is you're going to employ the mirror technique, where you've got a curve on a surface, you've got a mirror at about a point. We can do that first with this bottom curve, and you'll notice that we've taken that diagonal method and carried this width right here over to the other side. And what that does is it gives us that back point. So this point right here we now have. And if we do that along the back at each of these strategic locations, it should give us a nice curve to create the back of this iron. And once we've done that, let me pull that back up. Once we've done that, we can find points along that curve and carry those over using one of the many methods that we learned about early in the semester. And so what you're going to do is you're basically going to carry that philosophy, and you're going to employ that at a number of different places along this object. And one note, if you look at the back of all of these planes are vertical. There's going to be one trick, and this is one of your challenges. You've got to take and mirror a curve. So you're basically going to do the same thing in the back. It's just your curve will not be vertical. And you have to put it on a plane, and one of the challenges is for you to figure out how exactly to basically use this similar method there. And what that does is it'll give you the silhouette, and it'll build this object up with sections. Just as always, we want to think about the best angle to sketch this from. We're going to give you a couple of angles. We want to see the nose on this sketch, and we'd like to see maybe a little bit more of the side than of the front. And what's going to happen is you'll see is as this thing curves over, we may not see too much of the back side or the left side of this iron. But I want to start with a fairly shallow angle. That's going to the right vanishing point, which means that the angle going back to the left vanishing point is going to be fairly sharp. Let's actually start this about right here. It's going to be a deeper angle. So let's come back like so, towards the left vanishing point. Let me go ahead and establish maybe the height of my object. Let's not have it vanish quite so quickly. And at this point, let me show you, I'm not sure everybody has caught this yet, but if I have two lines going towards one vanishing point and one going towards the other, I've established where the horizon line is, because the two lines going towards the right vanishing point, where they meet would be the horizon line. And so that means that the convergence going towards the left vanishing point has been established. And so what we want to do is, you can pick anywhere along this line, but what we want to do is we want to find, let's go a little bit higher. We want to find the correct convergence going to the left vanishing point. So I'm just going to draw in a rectangle, a pure rectangle. Horizontal is horizontal, vertical is vertical, and where it meets these points ultimately is going to establish a second line that goes towards the left vanishing point. And you can see that the convergence is a little bit quicker. Obviously, we've got a steeper angle here, as we've talked about. This is shallower, this is steeper. This is going to converge more. We're going to see, perceive less of the front of this thing if we were thinking about it as a rectangular object, and more of the side. So while that's there, let's see, I want to go ahead and drop that in with a black line. I guess what I want to do is just to kind of continue on this point. I said you could pick anywhere along these lines to do this, and we'll see how accurate my lines are. I think it's going to be right there, and so yeah, so that'll work. Since the object that we're sketching is 2 units tall, I'm just going to divide. I'm going to find the midpoint here. One thing that Shay has talked about a few times is what he tries to think about is bisecting this angle. So when you see that convergence, so I'm going to draw a vertical in here, find the midpoint, and sketch a line. And what that is, I'm sketching that line. So we started with this bottom, we're going to here, and when I say the bottom, we started with the bottom of the plastic. We'll sketch the plate in later. I can do the same thing over here. Go ahead and draw in a line that's vertical, find the midpoint of that line. I've got the midpoint of that front line, and that gives me a consistent convergence going back towards the left vanishing point. We're not going to draw anything over here, but it's nice to have the further away, then the more accurate that's going to be. Now, since we're going to see a little bit more of the right side of this object, I need to establish a cube unit. And this is where it's important to just get your proportion right. So that feels pretty good, about right there. It's a little bit, this distance is a little bit shorter than that one, but not too much. I've already found the midpoint here, in fact, and so what I can do is I can basically create a diagonal method through that point over to there. And you guys just want to make sure that you're doing this correctly. Since this is a sketch and I'm really just showing you how to build this thing up, I'm not going to take the time to use my tool and get that exactly right. The big danger here that's going to make this thing look a little funky is if you skimp on this distance. You want to make sure it's not longer than the height, but if you skimp on that distance, you might be in trouble. But basically what I've created now is I've created this 4x2 block, and so this point back here, right there, is going to be that top point there. And we're actually going to extend this back a little bit further. I could go one more, so let's go 5, because that's the number of blocks that I've drawn. And then I can look at this distance right here. It's going to carry it back. And ultimately, I've got a plane. This is going to be the center plane, and I'm going to draw my side view on this center plane. Before I do anything with the footprint. And so I've got strategic points along the way, right there, right here. I'm looking just basically at the overall form of this object. It hits its maximum height here and then continues kind of along that height through there, but 2 back, here's a point, here's a point. It hits the height there, continues flowing, and it actually drops just a little bit right back here. So as I sketch this, I'm starting at the front. I'm looking at that angle. It's not quite 45, but as I'm going through this point, I'm looking at the next one. How do I get there from where we are, and how do I make this a nice smooth arc that flattens out to some degree at the top and then curves back down? So there's this line going back. And on the side, I also want to sketch in where my handle is. the center line becomes a very important line on the ground plane. We're going to keep referencing that, so make sure that you make note of that. I can go from that center point straight up to where I hit that center line, and from there take a line going on the vanishing line that's going towards the left vanishing point. I can carry a line from the base out to here, and what I'm doing, you don't necessarily have to draw this plane in, but I want to illustrate it. I'm looking at this plane, and so what we're going to do is we're going to continue this process of translating a curve that we can understand from a two-dimensional curve, a simple parabolic shape, onto this plane. And what I want to do is right here at the top, because this is a smooth object, I need to make sure it comes in tangent, and it's almost coming down perpendicular to the ground right there, but it's going to roll. Okay, in the far back here, we've actually got a slanted surface, but I want to sketch a line on that slanted surface. So as opposed to verticals, I'm going to carry this line back. I'm going to carry that center line straight down until it hits that center of the ground plane. I'm going to carry that over to here, and I'm going to create a slanted plane. And I'm looking at the overall width of this, and this object does get pretty wide out here, and what I'm going to try and do now is sketch this back view, which comes out this way on that slanted plane. Pretty tight radius there. And then it comes up, and again I just want to make sure that it comes through right here, tangent to a line going towards the left vanishing point. Even though that's on a slanted surface, it does not change things. And I can use the same mirror method back here, diagonal to mirror this curve as it comes around. Well, actually, we haven't talked about that mirror method, so let's talk about it up here towards the front. I'm going to do this in a different color so you can see it. But I'm looking at this plane, and what we want to do is we want to mirror that curve, which is an exercise we've done earlier in the semester. And I can go from this bottom point to this top corner, and it can give me this point, and carry that point towards the left vanishing point. I've already established the opposite side. Have I? No, I haven't. I need to employ the diagonal method to find the bottom point. So here's my X. This is the foreshortened center. And from here through from here through here. A straight line should give me that point, which is pretty close to where I had it. And so here's the mirrored plane on the back side. And it's also given me this point, which is on my original curve, ground plane curve. And I've carried this point over. I need to put another diagonal in right here where it meets that diagonal right there. That's going to be here. And what you need to do is you need to plot as many points as necessary to define So all this is construction. May get a little hairy, but let's sketch in. You're going to use your tools on this, your curves. There's my silhouette. It rolls around like so. It hits this angle back here. We're going to look at this intersection in just a moment. It is sharp. But here's the bottom of the plastic. I made that too sharp. I mean too wide. That's going to come through like so. I do want to make sure that everybody is using their center line, so I'm going to bring this up. We don't want to see that too dark. But this is the center section. And then we're going to see the silhouette of the handle as it comes back, and you just need to do as many sections as you feel are necessary. I'm looking back at the back of this, and I think if we draw, I'm looking at this curve and this curve. And as it comes back, I'm trying to translate this center line over to that other side, I think we're going to see just a little bit of daylight, right there. Run through this. I'm going to go ahead and sketch in the center section through here. We're going to use that as we move forward. So let me knock the opacity back a little bit more. Those all are going to be construction lines for you. Now it's a point where we start to add details.